Welcome to today's deep dive into a pretty mind-bending stack of sources on forensic theology. We're looking at the exact point where high-energy physics, genetics, and ancient relics completely collide.
Yeah, it is a truly fascinating intersection to look at.
Right, so our mission today is exploring the Dallas-James framework. It basically argues that ancient divine encounters, well, they weren't just pretty poetic metaphors. They were actually quantifiable, high-energy thermodynamic events that left behind, like, real forensic signatures.
Exactly. Measurable physical evidence that you can actually study in a lab today.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if these were actual physical events, we need ground zero evidence. Like, what are we actually looking at with the Shroud of Turin?
Well, when you examine the shroud, you're looking at a superficial oxidation of the cellulose in the linen. I mean, it is definitely not a painting. The image penetrates just 200 nanometers into the cloth.
Wait, 200 nanometers? That is what, like a fraction of a hair?
Yeah, it's about 1/10 the thickness of a single human hair. So to alter surface molecules that perfectly without transferring heat, the math requires a burst of vacuum ultraviolet radiation hitting 34 terawatts.
Oh, wow.
And all that has to be delivered in less than 50 nanoseconds.
Hold on. 34 terawatts. I mean, that is more power than the entire global energy grid produces in a single second.
It's an unimaginable amount of energy, yes.
So if an energy burst is that massive, why didn't the radiation just burn the cloth to a crisp? And frankly, couldn't a really clever medieval forger have just, used a hot metal statue to brand the linen?
A hot statue would just scorch straight through the fibers. This burst was so incredibly fast it altered the surface chemistry before the heat could even register.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the forgery theory itself?
Right, well, Dr. John Sottosanti, a maxillofacial surgeon, analyzed high-definition legacy photographs of the shroud in 2025. And he found the subject's incisal plane, the lower teeth, visible beneath the lips.
Wait, so the image is actually showing us what's inside the face?
Exactly, it's an internal X-ray. The framework calls this mechanical transparency. It essentially proves that radiation didn't just bounce off the subject's skin, it passed completely through the body.
That is wild.
And beyond that, forensic exams of the blood stains reveal serum halos. These are clear rings of plasma that separate from red blood cells during severe trauma.
Okay, but couldn't a forger just paint those on?
Well, here is the kicker. Those halos are totally invisible to the naked eye. They only show up under UV light, which is a technology that completely did not exist for medieval forgers.
Right, obviously. So here's where it gets really interesting for me. If we're looking at an advanced ancient X-ray with invisible UV blood markers, why did the famous 1988 radiocarbon dating tell the whole world that the shroud was just a medieval fake?
That is the big question, and the answer is in the 2026 Barcaccia Metagenomic preprint.
Ah, the DNA study.
Yeah, researchers applied advanced genetic sequencing to dust and organic matter vacuumed directly from the cloth. They found the shroud acted as a massive biogeographical sponge.
Absorbing environmental DNA, right? Like from trade routes.
Exactly. They found DNA from bananas, wheat, dogs, and even Near Eastern and Indian human haplogroups. It had been traveling along ancient trade routes long before the Middle Ages.
Wow. But how does that DNA sponge effect actually invalidate the 1988 carbon test?
Because the researchers also radiocarbon dated specific textile threads recovered right alongside that dust. And those specific threads dated precisely to a window between 1451 and 1800 CE.
Oh, I see. So the 1988 test literally sampled historical repair threads used to patch the cloth, not the original ancient canvas itself.
You got it. So the physical relic really does point to a genuine high-energy radiation event.
Okay, so if we pivot for a second, do the ancient texts actually support this physics-based reality? Because it's one thing to have a relic, but quite another for the texts to match up.
They absolutely do, and the math backs it up. Researchers ran the SHIELD protocol, which is a rigorous statistical algorithm designed to look for non-random architectures in biblical texts.
Okay, and what did they find?
They found a mathematical convergence with a 5.03 sigma significance.
Just to translate that for you listening, 5 sigma is basically the gold standard in particle physics. It means there is less than a 1 in 3.5 million chance those patterns are just a random coincidence.
Exactly. It's virtually impossible to be random.
But wait, how do you even find math in ancient scrolls?
By translating the texts mechanistically. Using the Urim Thummim version of the text, researchers basically stripped away the poetic philosophy to restore the original physical terminology.
Oh, interesting. So they looked at the literal physical descriptions.
Right, and this revealed what they call the Bochum continuum. When ancient texts describe these divine encounters, the blinding light and physical weakness drop off exponentially the further the person is from the source.
Which perfectly follows the inverse square law of electromagnetic radiation.
Precisely. It is not spiritual awe, It's literal dosimetric radiation exposure.
That is completely mind-blowing. So tying this all together, we've traced a journey from 34 terawatt biological X-rays and 2026 DNA data all the way to 5 sigma mathematical architectures in ancient texts.
It really challenges you to view ancient history not as poetic philosophy, but as applied transphysical science.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. The book of Ecclesiastes mentions a silver cord. We have always read that as a poetic metaphor for the human soul.
Right, the traditional interpretation.
But based on everything we've unpacked today, what if that cord is a literal, severable thermodynamic tether that actively sustains your biological animation? Something to think about until next